Finding me. All righty. So, Rabbi Debra Kolodny, I knew her before she was Rabbi Debra Kolodny, and she knew me before I was Rabbi Mark Novak, and we've been good friends for a long time, and we were chavruta when you still lived here in Washington area, um, and that's all I'm going to say. Anything else, I still consider you my teacher, my colleague, my friend, and tonight looking forward to the beginning of this 4 week journey together with you, Reb Deb. It's all yours. Take it. Please put your hands together and welcome Rabbi Debra Kolodny.
OMG. Well, I've never started a class with applause before, so I'm a little bit off kilter from this experience. Hi, everybody. It's a delight to be with you, coming to you from the warming Amherst, Massachusetts, Western Mass, Nonotuck land. I'm going to kick things off with a different kind of melody than we just started with. I'm going to put these words up on the screen, and I'm going to invite everybody to make sure that you mute yourself so that hold on a second, I'm going to stop the screen sharing. And is this big enough? Could you see it? It was big enough. Okay, then I'll share it again. So I'm going to, we'll sing this together, except I'm the only voice you'll hear, so we don't do that cacophonous thing. And the reason we're going to start with Shaviti Shechina Lenegdi Tamid, I place Shechina before me always, is because tonight's class, the opening class to the exploration of gender, Judaism, and you, is going to focus on the gender of Yah, the gender of God. And we are going to look at liturgy, and we're going to look at Torah text, and we're going to look at Zohar, and we're going to look at Talmud, and we're going to look at philosophical views on the nature of the gender of God. And if we have time, but Ezrat Hashem, with the help of God, God's self, we'll also spend a little time in Chavruta, one-on-one conversation about what impact all of this information, hopefully some new information, had on us. So, as an opening, if you like to put both feet on the floor and feel your head top suspended and allow yourself to be the conduit between the heavens and the earth, and feel yourself immersed in Godness, in the God field, in the flow of Shefa moving through your body. Together. Shiviti Shechina Lenegdi Tamid. Shiviti Shechina Lenegdi Tamid. Shiviti Shechina Lenegdi Tamid. Shiviti Shechina. Shiviti Shechina Lenegdi Tamid. Shiviti Shechina Lenegdi Tamid. Shiviti Shechina Lenegdi Tamid. Shiviti Shechina. Shiviti Shechina Lenegdi Tamid. Shiviti Shechina Lenegdi Tamid. Shiviti Shechina Lenegdi Tamid. Shiviti Shechina. So I would like everybody to take a moment, and instead of introducing yourself verbally into the space, introduce yourself in the chat with the following information: your name, and you could do your full name or your first name or your Hebrew name or your nickname, whatever name you want to be known as here, your name, your pronouns, where you live geographically. And if you know where you live cosmically, that's not the same as your geographic location, put that into. So name, pronoun, uh, earthly geography, and maybe cosmic geography. Mm. Deborah wants us to know that yes, she's in Canada, so we could all be envious. And Anna has made it, thank goodness. So just make sure you're taking a look at who's here in the room with us so that we can all be located in the time-space continuum together here. So for those of you who registered through me or who are here from MOSh, but you've taken a class with me, so I thought maybe you might come tonight, I asked you a preliminary question, some thought work, and I asked you to ponder um, what gender do you think God is? How is God imagined in liturgy and in Torah? And what do you remember of those images? And what do they mean for you? And so I want to start out. You could continue putting it in the chat, but what's your favorite image of God? And where did you hear it? And what does it mean for you? Why do you like it? So anyone can open the space. And if you haven't studied from with me before, you should know. I use what's called the popular education model of teaching, which means I ask questions to elicit your brilliance before I lay anything down on you, because I hate to be the only voice in the room. So, God images, what's your favorite? Where'd you hear it from? What does it mean for you? Anyone? Yes,
I'll
Dan.
give it a shot.
Yes, I go first.
Dan, and then Elka, and then Sham. Who said they'll give it a shot?
That was Shams.
All right, go Dan.
So my image is more like the force, sort of, and I put in the chat as my cosmic identity or location, just life existence. And there's something holy about it because it's moving forward towards increased complexity and beauty and improvement. And it doesn't have a gender. I never think of it as a gender. There are gender qualities that can be aspects or attributes of goodness, godliness, godness, but I wouldn't think of the force as being gender.
Great,
DeBarty.
Shamati. Thank you, Elka.
I don't often think of God as a gendered being, or because in general, it's more of different forms of energy for me. But when I think of gendered, it would be the Shekhinah, who is a mix for me of challenge and comfort, the body.
Shamati. So there's some people who have their hands up. Shams, did you speak up earlier? Please go ahead, and then Devora and Mary Rita.
Okay, thanks. Um, yeah, I don't think of God as having gender either, but I would say growing up, I'm very multi-religious. My father was raised Orthodox Jewish and then became Unitarian Universalist. My mother was raised Presbyterian and then became Unitarian Universalist. And I would say there are many ways they were both reacting against in some ways. Um, they were recovering from whatever. So I was very atheistic in a way, although my father had a super mystical side. But then when I went to college, um, because I didn't have religious wounding, I was a seeker for a really long time. When I went to college, I was really involved in like neo-pagan, lesbian, goddessy stuff. And so my first access to any sense of theism was feminine in that sense, but definitely not all powerful. And then eventually I got really into Sufism, which has an awful lot of masculine language, but also this sense of Allahu, who being a gender neutral pronoun. But when I was first trying to, I had some teachers who thought it would be good for you to have masculine imagery for the divine in addition to the feminine imagery. And so I started that out with, Ganesha. And I used to do these visualizations of just laying down and relaxing on the back of an elephant and letting Ganesha carry me. So Ganesha, I think, might still be my favorite image of a masculine god, but I definitely agree with whoever said like God is energy or sort of like dimensional. There's the divine in many dimensions. With higher and lower frequencies. I mean, I'm not that attached. I don't need to know. But my sense of the divine is very gender neutral. But it can be cool to tap into a sense of masculine or feminine divinity, or even non-binary divinity, but like personified sometimes, I think.
Thank you. So I just want to say it's 7:17. And while I just like outed myself as being a popular education style teacher, I also do have things I want to share with you. So as we continue this very first question, please let's all try and keep it succinct and as crisp as possible so we can move along. And also at some point, everyone will get to share. All right, Dora.
Well, long before I even knew there was such thing as a feminine version of God, I, as Reb Zalman had said, but I hadn't known he said it, didn't believe in that pediatric definition of God or image of God. So I've always thought of God more as an energetic field with no gender.
Amen. Me too. Mary Rita.
Okay, so I put in the chat Mama Shahina because that is God. I'm going to say she is God for me, and because one of the things that I really found difficult in Catholicism was that God was so was presented in such a masculine way, but I don't think of gender. She's Mama Shahina. But sometimes God is light, sometimes God is love for me. Sometimes God, has, and I don't think love would be more than just something that's energetic for me. Like love is I don't know, it's just kind of packed up with, I think, every Sephirot and every kind of whatever good things. Even though when I think of God, I know that there's lightness and darkness and all that kind of stuff, but mainly God's Mama Shahina.
Thank you. Ellen.
Basically, the oneness stuff and everything, including every molecule of my being and yours, and are part of that oneness stuff. There are masculine and feminine and non-binary aspects and words like Yehidah, which is in that beingness, and Rachamema and Shekhinah and a bunch of others. And then in the masculine sort of edge of things, Reb Miles would talk a lot about El Rachum V'Chanun. And that is the ideal masculine aspect for me, as in mercy, compassion from Rechem, from womb, and Hanun, which is pure love freely given in my definition. And there are so many of them that I love. And when I used to use the Reconstructionist Siddur, there were so many wonderful names. And when I used to lead Rosh Chodesh, there were so many wonderful names that I'm not thinking of at this moment, but that's enough.
Thank you so much, Ellen. Marlena, you don't have your Hebrew name on your.
Oh, yes, and yeah, that's true. Um, the word that came to me was awakening, an awakening within me, an awakening that comes within because of what I see or imagine or feel that's so beautiful and that I want to be closer to it. It has nothing to do with gender to me or anything like that, but it's an embracing that's allowed by what's awakened.
Beautiful. Reb Marco.
Very quickly, just to illustrate what God is not to me, and what Deborah mentioned about the Reb Zalman talking about the pediatric understanding of God. This is what God is not to me.
Indeed.
So you have a lot wrapped up here. The male figure at the computer who's overseeing every little bit and making decisions based upon a whim. That's Gary Larson, by the way, Far Side.
Thank you. I don't see any more hands, but I think, Elizabeth, you had your hand up before. Have you opted out, or do you still want to share?
I felt there's probably enough grist to the mill, and I feel inarticulate about it. It is definitely an energy experience, and I grew up with the patriarchal model, and it took a whole while to really allow that to let go. So I'm a huge.
Dan, sorry, I'm not laughing at you. Dan Glazer just said, "Now are we criticizing pediatrics?" So I'm sorry. That's the problem with writing in the chat while someone's talking. My deepest apologies, Elizabeth.
Yeah. So it's beyond words, beyond naming. It's a sensation, a kinesthetic experience, rather than a form.
So I just want to say, everybody here, I see hands up, and it's 7:23. And I really have a lot of material to share with you. But I want to say that it seems like everyone here has already transcended the Melech, king, the, kind of overseer God, the puppeteer God, the God that, is mostly kind of what people associate with what they learned about when they entered Judaism, and that they work with, because this is MOSh, it's MOSh and more, not just MOSh here. So it's interesting to notice. I also didn't hear anyone talk about wounding from those images, or from feeling excluded by those images, or feeling less diminished by those images, or not included, or somehow not in the wholeness in the body of spirit. So this is beautiful that you've all gotten to that place. I just wanted to lift up that there are some beautiful images in Torah too. Sometimes Yah is referred to as Hamakom, the place, or Hashemayim, the heavens, or that cloud of fire, Anon Hagadol, that we followed, which is totally like gender neutral, right? Or the sorry, did I say that? The column of cloud, or the column of fire that we followed. The Kuchabrichu, the Holy One of Blessing, which is grammatically gendered masculine, but when you think about it in English, the Holy Blessed One, or the Holy One of Blessing, definitely not a notion that's gendered. Elizabeth, what do you say? You did feel excluded and overseen. Oh, thank goodness for growth. Thank goodness that there were pioneers before us, right, who opened up the possibilities that we could now dwell within and awaken within. So anyone else? I just wanted to say those few things to acknowledge that we do have liturgy that is almost exclusively, unless you have a non-traditional Siddur, grammatically masculine for God, for those who are Hebrew fluent and are really, reading and hearing the constant masculine refrain. And we do have a Torah text that is predominantly masculine. Steve, you had your hand up, and Batya, you had your hand up, I think. So what would each of you like to offer? And then I want to get into some text study.
What I was going to say is that when I read Yod-Heh Vav-Heh, I have many different, I changes what I'm going to say for the name of God changes by the week, by the month. And as a teacher, I let my students decide for themselves what word and what image they want to have for God. I really encourage that. But for me, Hamakom has a special meaning because I was raised by Jewish atheists and I came to Judaism very, very late in my life. And reading about Jacob and God was here all along and I did not know it, that so moves me. And so I relate to that so totally. So that's one of my many names.
Thank you so much, Batya. Steve, and then we'll get to the text.
I was going to say that I view God as a pure potentiality. So all sexes, no sexes, all genders, no genders, and then I thought of something, and then Mark said about the whole patriarch thing, and I thought, no, I don't want it to be the patriarch. And then when maybe I should exclude that from my all potential. And then I thought the Holocaust. That feels like a really vengeful, angry God dropping the piano on the person out of, and so I think there is that destructive. I think it's all potential, and that frightens me a little bit. But that's why I had to say something. It frightens me a little bit that any potential can be there, including the totally destructive, horrendous masculine energy.
Well, certainly in the Jewish tradition, Yod-Heh Vav-Heh is both tov and ra, not goodness and everything, but goodness and evil included in that potentiality. Holocaust theology is for another course, so I'm just going to say that I heard you, and we'll have that conversation another time. But for now, we're going to go back into the very beginning of the text in Torah and take a look at, do you see at the top of the page, Torah creation story? Someone gives, all right. So, Vayivra Elohim et ha'adam b'tzalmo, b'tzelem Elohim, bara oto zachar u'nekeva, bara otam. The English is right there. And God created man. This text, interestingly enough, this text, which was put together in Sfaria to depict the non-masculinity of God, translates this text with God being translated as his. I would say, and God created man in God's own image, in the image of God, created Adam, the first human, male and female, God created them. So let's do some parsing of this text. I can't have the text up here and see, well, can I see everyone? Hold on, let me see if I can see you all while I have the text up. Yeah, I can. All right, so, Vayivra Elohim, God created, et ha'adam, the first earthling, Betzalmo, in God's image, Betzelem Elohim, in the image of God, or actually, potentially God's, but in the image of God, bara oto, God created that one, let's say, not gender it, zachar, male, unekava, female, bara otam, Yah created them. Dissect this sentence for me. Either if you're Hebrew like fluent, more the better, but even if you're not, what do you think is going on here? Elizabeth?
I have a sense of both there, this and that.
Both and, this and that? Great. What else? You or someone else? What else are you seeing in the text? Great.
It's repetitious.
All right. Repetitious.
I mean, there's 3 times it says bara.
Ah, that is true. Mary Rita.
But it seems to break it down in God created, let's say, man in his own image, and then that is repeated in the image of God created him, but then it went to the duality of male and female created them.
Right. So let me let me dive into that. Ha-Adam, the earthling. Let's not call it the man. The earthling. Adama is earth. Adam is earthling. Et ha-Adam was created. All right. One being. And it even amplifies that when it says bara oto, created him or it, that one being. Zachar unekeva, male and female, bara otam. Otam is the plural, them. Ha-Adam, one being, referred to as them. For all of you who believe that an individual's pronouns can't be they, them, Torah disagrees with you. That's the first lesson. But more importantly, this first being, one being, Ha-Adam, that was Otam, that was a them, was B'Tselem Elohim, in the image of God. What does that mean God was or is? Me'era.
It says B'Tsalmo, his image, not B'Tsalmam, their image.
So God is unified and God is also
masculine,
plural. God is Elohim and God is unified. Just like Adam is unified and a them, God is unified, individual and a them.
And this reminds me, in psychology, where they'll talk about like the male psyche and the female psyche. It does, there is one person, but we have like a female psyche spirit and a male psyche.
Beautiful. It could also remind you of the Sphirot. There's not just 2 of them.
Yeah, that's true.
My gosh, there's 7 lower ones, there's 3 more upper ones. Talk about multiple personalities. I mean, right? Sometimes,
Yes.
actually, sometimes when I talk about gender, I'm like, well, why isn't each of the Sphirot a gender? There's the Gevurah gender, and there's the Chesed gender, and the Tiferet gender. Anyway.
It sounds on its face, though, contradictory. Because initially it's Adam and Oto, and then it says, Zachar Nekeva bara Otam, referring. Wait, where did two things come from? I don't know. Just to me, of course, it sounds on its face like a mixed up sentence that contradicts itself.
So what's the opportunity in Torah when things are not crystal clear on the Peshat, on the plain meaning of the text?
Midrash.
Yeah, have a conversation. We're doing. So let me lay some Midrash on you. Very good. All right. Midrash Vayikra Rabbah on Leviticus, but it's about this. Rabbi Samuel Shmuel ben Nachman said, at the time that the Holy One, blessed be he, still genderizing God as he, created humans, God created the human as an androgynos. We know what that is. It's a Greek word. It's also used in Hebrew, and it's pronounced in English, not English, androgynous. The first being was androgynous. Reish Lakish said that at the time that Adam was created, Adam had 2 faces, and Yah sliced that person and gave that person 2 backs, a female one and a male one, as it says, and Yah took from his sides, as it says, into the side of the tabernacle. So that part is from Leviticus. All right. So the first thing we have in the Midrash is, it's not contradictory. It's not so confusing. The first person really was both male and female, imagined more like Siamese twins, like conjoined twins, I think is the term we use today, right? Than as intertwined gender identities. Carrying on. Rav Bracha and Rav Chalbo and Rav Shmuel ben Nachman said, at the time that the Holy One, blessed be he, created man, God created humanity from one end of the earth until the other, filling the whole world. God created humanity from the east to the west. From where do we learn that the human was created from east to the west? As it says, you have fashioned me from behind and of the earth to the other. As it says, from one edge of the heavens into the other edge of the heavens. And from where do we learn that before? And from where do we learn that humanity was created from one end? Adam filled the whole space of the whole earth, as it says, and lay your hand upon me. Not only was this one being, both male and female, it filled the entire earth. All right. Any comments about this midrash, what it adds to the Torah text herself? All right. Anything coming up for anybody? All right. What are the implications for you if the first being was both male and female, and that is the being that was created in the image of Yah? If you don't have an immediate answer, you could write it down as homework, something to think about, because we'll wrap around back to it.
It just takes me back to what I had learned when I was like studying psychology, and that there's a balance in me that has, like, I always felt like and in some ways that they're more stereotypical. They were more stereotypical the way it was presented, that the man had like more aggression and, was more forward in taking stands, and the women was more gentle and more connecting, but that they were part of the male and the female. When I hear this, I think, yeah, I do see the tree of life, and I do see all the sphirot. It's like that I have a possibility of having all of those qualities within me, and that somehow, the idea is like balancing the opposites, if we call them opposites.
Yofi. So it is a classic Jewish practice in the Musar tradition, or the ethical development tradition, to aspire to be as much like holiness, as much like God as we can. And so if Yah comprises all of these different gender qualities, and even more so all of the different sphirot, we should aspire to cultivate all of that within ourselves too. So yes, beautiful, Mary Rita. Deborah, and there are some people who haven't spoken at all, so I am paying attention, and I'm going to really try, if multiple people have their hands up, to call on folks who haven't yet spoken. Deborah.
Well, the concept of hermaphrodite I learned in grade 10 biology, and I can't remember what organism it was, but it was it's such a fascinating concept, and I just thought it was really cool, but never heard about it again for like, I don't know, 40 or 50 years afterwards.
Here you go. It's right there in Judaism. Yes, Mindy.
So it's bringing up for me, I think God is within us. I do not think God is outside of us. So we are God. And I think that's why we can connect to God, because we are God, male and female, and everything else.
Yofi, thank you. So is anyone, thank you very much. Is that Anna, are you waving your hand to raise your hand? Yay, come on. Come on in.
What?
Up, you're on mute somehow. Yes, you're on mute.
Sorry, I'll have working. So.
It's working now, though.
Okay, good. So I just wanted to say that, yes, the hermaphrodite thing and nature, which of course is God, shows that in so many ways. Parrotfishes that are first male and then become male, and things that are both male and female. And it's almost like God is showing us all along. Listen, you people, look, it's all in you. You're all permutations of oneness. There is no duality. And you maybe have sex organs, that are female at birth. You certainly have male characteristics in you and vice versa. And certainly the young people of today, in whatever messy way that we humans do things, are onto something in non-duality in that respect.
Thank you.
And that's all I got to say.
Your audio is a little wobbly, but thank you. I want to emphasize something that I think you said. I want to just make sure everyone heard it. The embryo starts out, we all start out female, right? And so there's even males or people who are assigned male at birth and who choose to be male, who see themselves as male, were at some point in their evolution female. Is that something you said or something that I just heard? Whatever it is, we have it all in us. Everyone has everything in us. I just want to ask, is anybody thinking, but what about Adam and Eve? Yes, Sarah Bina's asking that question. So, if you know the documentary hypothesis about all the multiple authors in Torah, you could say, oh, they're two different stories by two different authors. However, even if you don't want to look at the documentary hypothesis, you could also say, look, these two stories are totally aligned with each other. The one story, Adam was created both male and female. The next story, first Adam was created, and then from his tselem, which is translated either as rib or side. Remember the story? Remember, there was back-to-back, male and female. They were separated. So that second story is merely chapter 2 of this story, of the first story, the first being that was created both male and female. It looks like your hand is up, Ellen.
When you were reading it, it was like the hugeness of the first Adam being both male and female. What I had learned was that they could see from one end of the world to the other, but you were saying like they existed in this huge space, and that the spaciousness of our possibility to welcome many aspects of ourselves. And we know that there's toxic masculinity and then there are the good guys. So there's nothing to say that Adam being part male, part female, would have been a good guy who didn't go into the masculine exclusion and the Y chromosome is blah, 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 all that stuff.
Indeed. I'm not seeing any of the hands up, so I want to throw in something that is just, there you go, Renee.
So I was just going to say, as the parent of a non-binary person, to me, it just feels like, yes, of course, there were males and there were females and there was this them.
Mm-hmm. And there was this them. Yeah, and I actually, being a non-binary person myself, always want to make the point that just because Genesis chapter 1, verse 27 says that God is non-binary, and the human that was created in the image of God, Adam Kadmon, the original human, was non-binary, doesn't mean non-binary people are holier than everyone else, but certainly at least as holy as everybody else. Yeah. So
yeah, amen.
There is not just in the Jewish renewal, fringy, like out there, cosmically awakened folks, this understanding that God is energy or beyond gender. It's also can be found in Torah herself. I'm going to share some more text here. We won't, for time's sake, we won't do the Hebrew. We'll just go right to the English. In Deuteronomy, is this your reward to God, you dull and witless people? Surely he is the Father who created you, the reference to God, fashioned you and made you perfect. And then in Isaiah, can a woman forget her baby? Speaking of God, or disown the child of her womb, though she might forget, I could never forget you. In our very foundational text, God is sometimes referred to a father and sometimes referred to as a mother. Anyone else have any examples that are like in your pocket that you can think of that come from our text or our liturgy, that where God is explicitly referred to in different ways? Ellen.
This is in Shir HaShirim, in Song of Songs, where I just forgot what I was going to say.
Should we get back to you?
Oh, the Haverim Makshivim, that even the daughters of Jerusalem were, some of them male and some of them female. It's just a whole panoply.
Even the daughters of Jerusalem, some of that. There's so much gender bending in our tradition. I'm going to unpack a little bit more of it for you right now. Here's a text on God as princess. All right, we'll just go right to it. The English Zohar of Mishpatim. It is compared, God is compared to a lovely princess, beautiful in every way and hidden deep within her palace. She has one lover, unknown to anyone. He is hidden too. Out of his love for her, this lover passes by her gate constantly, lifting his eyes to every side. She knows that her lover is hovering about her gate constantly. So we know that Zohar plays with gender, but as we just saw, so did Deuteronomy and Isaiah play with the gender of God. It's all over the place. All right. Now I'm going to stop sharing for a sec and get into a little bit of philosophy. Here's from Rambam, Maimonides' Guide for the Perplexed, one of the many philosophers who said, do not anthropomorphize God. This adds a whole new dimension. When you all decided to describe what God was for you, so many of you did not anthropomorphize. In fact, I think nobody anthropomorphized. Everybody was like, energy or potentiality or awakening. Nobody was using anthropomorphic language. So I have to say, you've made the Rambam very, very happy. And I'm going to send him a note in my prayers tonight. This crew of people are living into his vision. So here's a few things he had to say about why folks anthropomorphize God and impose human form on God, and why we shouldn't. This is from Guide for the Perplexed, part 1, verses 1 and 2. Some have been of the opinion that the Hebrew word tselem, we've already talked about that, the shape and figure of a thing is to be understood and known. And this explanation led men to believe in the corporeality of the divine being, because we were created, Tselem Elohim, right? They thought the words that we just read, let us make man in our Tselem, let us make humanity in our Tselem, implied that God had the form of a human being. They adhered faithfully to this view and thought if they were to relinquish it, they would reject the truth of Torah. And if they did not conceive Yah as having a body, possess a face and limbs similar to their own experience, they would have to deny even the existence of God. You can imagine how terrifying that was. Now, I'm not talking like Rambam, I'm talking for myself, how terrifying that was, and how it really pushed people to anthropomorphize God, even though the tradition did not think we should be doing that. Anyway, Rambam said they got the words wrong. The Hebrew word that means form, meaning figure and shape of a thing, is toar. And he shares some proof text. Joseph was beautiful in toar and beautiful in appearance. And in Shmuel, chapter 28, verse 14, what form toar is he of? And in Judges, chapter 8, verse 18, is the form toar of the children of a king. And he says this term toar is not applicable to God. Tselem, on the other hand, means the essence of a thing, the soul of a thing, intellectual perception of a thing. That's what we have and God have in common. at the soul level, at the essential level, at the perception level. So he goes on to talk about why the word Tselem could be used for idols, because idols are representative of the soul of the god in other traditions. They are also not about form. So what does this add? What does this add to the conversation that we shouldn't even be thinking of God in any human form at all? And so gender is kind of irrelevant, I would think. Any thoughts about that? All right.
Well, I mean, the use of the words, the face of God, the right hand of God, all these anthropomorphic descriptions of God lead us. That's not necessarily a gender thing, but it's an anthropomorphic thing, and that's what's hard to get away from
Yes.
when we talk about that.
It is. Agreed. And I think once we start anthropomorphizing on the regular, and we're so habituated to it because we're reading it in the Torah text itself, imposing a gender, because we don't think of humans as genderless for the most part, seems like a normal or obvious thing to do. Robin and then Mindy. Oh, Robin, you're muted.
Am I unmuted? Okay. So I think about this as a developmental thing. What I see happening is the Torah is talking to people at the level that they're at. So people are still very gender identified, can understand Torah. And as people develop, hopefully that's happening speedily and in our day, we don't have to have that anymore.
Beautiful. Yeehaw, I agree. Mindy.
So if God is the God of the universe, that means every planet with any people on it, we don't know that they look like us. So God is the God of everyone, everywhere. There's only one God. So of course we can't anthropomorphize it because we don't even know what people, we don't know the shape of people, but there's no shape.
Amen amen. Anyone else on the prohibition on anthropomorphization? Going once. Oh, yeah, Steve, please.
Yes. Yeah. What is the word in the Ten Commandments about not having an image of God? I'm just wondering if that. I was always taught that don't make an idol, but I'm thinking it could have another whole meaning there. Don't try to depict God as male or female.
Wow. I don't know off the top of my head, and I am not capable of looking at both my source text and my script and you guys, and also checking in Torah text. But I will look at that for next week and get back to you on the exact word. I don't know if the word was tselem or something else. Thanks for asking. I'll do that's my homework. So as we have already gotten a hint at, the genderlessness or the multiple genderness of Yah has implications for us as well, for how we identify our own genders. So I want to read some text that, let's see, is from the Shulchan Aruch. So this is like legal text here, right? This is not Zohar. This is not like the mystical woo-woo stuff. All right, I'm just going to do this in English because it's very long. Whoops, sorry. There we go. All right, can you see that? Yes? Can you see that? All right. I have already revealed to you last Shabbat concerning your first two wives. Now I've come to reveal to you the secret of your third wife. You should know that this woman was in the past a proper male Torah scholar, but he was stingy with his money and would not give charity, stingy with his wisdom and would not teach others. He was therefore punished, and his soul migrated into a woman, measure for measure. His soul was incarnated into a female, constantly receiving and needs someone to bequeath to her. Therefore, you see, she does abundant charity and loves you very much because you work to spread Torah and toil in writing books to teach others, because these things bring about the rectification of her soul. Now, putting aside the horrific implication that she's reincarnating as a woman because she did something, she was a stingy, like miserly guy in the last life, this idea that we souls can incarnate into different genders in different lifetimes exists. All right, so thoughts about that before we move into the last piece and then move into Chavruta. I'm trying to think. Some of you did study. Yes, Robin, some of you did study with me about reincarnating, all the implications of that. So this is not going to be unfamiliar to you. Robin, go ahead.
Reb Deb, can I interrupt just for a second?
Yes.
Which is before you take the next few comments, if you want to go into Chavruta following this, I suggest we come up with a way of knowing who wants to go into Chavruta so I can create the rooms, which I've done mostly. So our usual minhag is if you want to participate, go into Chavruta and study for a few minutes with another human being, have your video on right now. If you don't want to do that, turn your video off right now through when we go into Chavruta, and then you will not be put into Chavruta, but you'll also be put into your own room, and then you'll be brought back when everybody else comes back. How does that sound?
That's fantastic.
Okay,
so
thanks.
Video on if you want to be in Chavruta, video off if you don't. Deborah, thank you, Reb Marco. Deborah.
Oh, wasn't someone else speaking though before?
Reb Mark was just giving instructions.
Okay.
You can go, Deborah, though. You go after.
Oh, Robin, were you in the middle of speaking?
Yeah.
So sorry. Go ahead, Robin, and then Deborah.
So I was thinking that maybe it's not punishment. This is just interpretation that so someone was stingy. So in general, this is totally sexist on my part, but women tend to be more comfortable giving. So maybe it's more like an experience than a punishment.
A tikkun, a healing. Grow this muscle. Reb Robin, that was beautiful. All right, Deborah.
Well, I know, I put it in quotes, that in other lives I was male. So I don't think that that's unusual. I don't think gender matters, really. I'm not sure how it works or how it happens, but I do know from past life regression that I was male before. It wasn't my favorite, but I was.
Thank you for sharing that, Deborah. All right, one more text, and then we're going to go into Chavruta, and I'll give you the question as you go in. So this is from, hold on, let me scroll up so I'll get it here. Sha'ar HaGilgulim. So it is Hasidic text about reincarnation. And here we go. It is known that when Isaac was born, he was born with the soul of a female, as it is written in Or HaChaim, and through the Akedah, binding of Isaac, he got a male soul that can influence, meaning can impregnate. With that, we can understand why the more infertile human, I'm sorry, I'm not sure what there's a typo here. With that, we can understand why why there are more infertile humans than animals, even though they both got the same blessing. It is not within you and within your animals infertility. But according to the Sod, the secret mysticism of reincarnation, at times a female would be in a male body because of the reason of Gilgul, reincarnation, and the soul of a female would come into a male. So this idea in 18th century Chassidut that Isaac was born with the soul of a female and that he transitioned. He had gender affirming soul transition and became a male in his lifetime. 17th century Chassidut. We're going to do more studying of what the Talmud has to say on the 6 different genders in classical Judaism. But I often think, how did they get it right in the 18th century? And now, especially in this moment, this administration is getting it so horribly wrong. How did that happen? All right. Here is the question for you. When you go into Chavruta, you already came into this conversation without having, let's say, the preconceived notion or the prejudice that God was male, right? Everyone who spoke, anyway. How does hearing our tradition from Torah text to Midrash to the Shulchan Aruch to the Zohar to Chassidut affirming what you came in imagining, believing, understanding, how does hearing that affirmation and perhaps even expansion of what you came in thinking impact your view, not of gender, but of Judaism? How does it impact your view of Judaism? What does it make you want to learn more about? How do you see yourself fitting into the tradition? What questions does it raise? All right, got it? Yeah? All right, you're going to have 10 minutes. So Reb Marco is going to put you into your rooms, 2 people each, 5 minutes each, and we'll come back in 10 minutes and harvest. Mark?
Okay, hold on a second because someone just turned their video off. Okay, if you end up with just one person in your room, now I know how you feel, Renee. We'll take care of it, but we're ready to go. Okay, I will give you a 2-minute warning when it's 2 minutes to come back.
Before we go, Reb Deb, do you have those questions written down, and would you like to drop them in the chat so everybody can go with them?
Hmm? I'm gonna put them in the. Oh, do they need to be in the chat before people go?
Yes.
All right. Sorry. So hold on just a second.
Breakout room, breakthrough. Okay.
Hi.
There must be something wrong with the transporter.
No, we're waiting until I get my questions in. All right. The question.
And make sure you, for those of you who are going to rooms, you want to unmute yourselves.
when you get to
when
the
you
room.
get there, unmute yourselves. All right, I'm ready. You ready, Reb Deb? There we go. Excellent. Okie dokie, we're good. So if you want to give me, usually I'll put in like a 2-minute or whatever warning I can, or we didn't tell people just having a conversation with. It's not like one at a time. Okay, so what time is it? It's 8:05.
Yep. So
Okay,
8:15.
great. Okay, goody.
Know how to spell To'ar? I'm thinking somebody asked.
Spell what?
To'ar. It was part of the teaching I gave over, but I didn't have it spelled in Hebrew. It was just transliterated. So
To'ar?
To'ar for form. The other versus Selam. To'ar versus Selam.
I don't know.
Yeah. No worries.
Okay, good.
Oh, actually, I could do it better one.
Okay, I'll be back.
Hello. Hello. I can't hear you. I still can't hear you. Can you hear me?
You want to pause the recording?
3 minutes.
I meant right now until people come back.
You know why Deborah and Renee were laughing? Because
Oh,
this
because
is
they
our,
are doing this.
we're always dealing with it as many times. We have very explicit, as you know, instructions for if you want to go into the breakthrough rooms, you have to have your video on right now. And if you want to go to the break rooms and have your video on and you need to get up for any reason, don't turn your video off.
Yeah.
And this has been our, minhag for like ages. And yet do people turn them on and turn them off and turn them on?
It's so stressful to determine, to decide.
Why don't I hear you? I couldn't hear Dan either. That's really weird.
I don't know. My output is outputting. Yeah.
Huh. Can you hear me? Okay, maybe it'll change when people come back. Well, it's not important for me to hear people. We'll see what happens. I don't know why. What's going on? Unless, I know.
Should I talk to see if you can hear me?
Yes. Now I should hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Huh.
Sometimes my computer does something very weird, which just changes my speaker settings.
Huh.
Okay, well, at least I figured it out.
What a relief. What a relief.
Okay, I got to give people closing rooms. 60 seconds. I'll bring the people from the waiting room back in. Welcome back.
Shiviti Shechina Lenegdi Tamid. Shiviti Shechina Lenegdi Tamid. Shiviti Shechina Lenegdi Tamid. Shiviti Shechina. All right. Boschniks Plus. So you had an opportunity to explore this question. Not necessarily how did what we just discussed today influence how you thought about God, but how did it influence how you think about Judaism? And what your place is in Judaism, and what questions you have, and what you want to learn more about. And of course, you could have talked about anything you wanted to. So we're going to take about 10 minutes and harvest any insights that you shared or questions that you shared. And Dan, while you were away, I put the spelling of Torah into the chat. I hope it's still there. Do I need to redo that for you? It's tough, Aleph Resh. So the floor is open.
Thank you.
Got it? Okay, the floor is open. Dvorah.
Well, I would just like to say that I've recently thought about all this. I don't really remember why, But I concluded that having spent 45 years of my life not realizing that I was gay, I spent the entire 45 years translating everything in my brain, translating everything in my head, and not believing a lot of things that people said because that wasn't quite how I saw the world. And so I think I did that in Judaism too. And so the fact that everything was, Adonai and Elohim and everything was male, it's like, yeah, so was everything else. But it didn't mean that that's how I interpreted it. And so I think I don't know where I just thought of this recently, very recently, but I think that's how I was able to navigate and have faith in a world that was very male dominated or very, very male oriented. So Deborah.
Thank you, Shamati. Mary Rita, and then Ellen, and then Sarah Bina.
I had a question, which was, I would, or maybe it's not, but I would have wanted more of Judaism teaching me this perspective, and like if it was, let's say it was in the Hasidut, that's not the only example that you were giving us. But if like it was really strongly taught and believed in a group of people, even if we're smaller than, and maybe the Catholics learn something like this too, or like like what a different world it would be, where people might have a voice and be able to, that we have more balance in our world and more acceptance.
Yeah.
So it was kind of like, what happened that it didn't get taught or it didn't get shared? I think I learned something like this in one class that I had.
You gave me job security. I taught you something you haven't learned before. First of all, I want to say Shamati. I really truly hear that and get it. On the other hand, I also believe in the cosmic theory that there needs to be a certain elevation of consciousness collectively for there to be a will and a receptivity to the teaching, a will to hear and a receptivity to the teaching. And I think, well, Baruch Hashem, we're in that moment, Baruch Hashem, we're alive now.
Mm-hmm.
Ugh. Right? Yeah. Ellen.
It hasn't changed my place in Judaism because I sort of gave this to myself, but I was delighted that there was so much more in the text and writings, and because I had not come across most of this before. So it was like, yay, there's so much more backing than just, me and Rosh Chodesh.
Right?
Yeah.
When I started teaching this, I'm like, you know what? It's not just this radical leftist, feminist, queer, non-binary rabbi who's like saying this. This has been said for millennia.
Right.
So it does give me comfort to feel like I'm not just in the moment, I'm so backwards compatible as Reb Zalman Zichrono Livracha wanted us to be, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Sarah Bina and Reb Barta.
So I was sharing that it's amazing to me. I study Talmud, I study this, I study here, I study that, I study there. Way back, millennial, they knew more than we know now. And they talked about it.
Yeah. Yep, they talked about it. When we get to the part where we're going to go over the 6 genders in the Talmud, what is so charming to me is that the conversation is so matter of fact. It's like, some people have these genitals when they're born and then they change. The only thing they want to know is, are they going to light the Shabbos candles or are they going to say Kiddush? That's all they want to know. It's like, because everyone has to have a place.
Mm.
Oh my God, I'm starting to choke up, right? How did we get here from this? Reb Marco.
Professor Mark Tzvi Bretler is a professor of Jewish studies at Duke University, and he wrote a book called How to Read the Hebrew Bible. Just as important with that for this evening's discussion is a link I just put into the chat for an article that he wrote called The Gender of God, in which a lot of the things that you have unpacked tonight, Reb Deb, is a review, and there's a lot in there that maybe you're getting to. So it'd be worthwhile as a review for all of us to read his article and to check out what he has to say, because he's a very, very well-respected scholar. Professor Mark Tzvi Bretler. So click on it. Hopefully it'll open up in another window, and then you can look at it after we're done tonight. Zahu.
Mark is incredible. I recommend it highly, and I clicked on that link. I haven't read his piece yet. I might get to some of what he's going to say, but I only plan on talking about God for one of our classes. So to give you a little preview, next week we're going to be talking about characters in Torah and Nevi'im and Ketuvim. So storylines that aren't necessarily about being non-binary or gender bending, but what does Torah really teach us about gender? Like, what are our imaginings about gender? And then how does Torah depict gender? So how does this fit into Torah? Oh, Dan, you're so clever. Yeah. How does it? Sorry, Elke.
Yeah, I didn't grow up Jewish, and I didn't grow up with much religion, but the bits and pieces that I did hear or was taught all were God was male and everything was male oriented, and there was no place for me, period. And so it was a great joy and relief and to me that when I was introduced to more or less conservative Jewish people when I came to this country, that maybe there is a place for me.
There's a place for you, right here, a place for you. I don't see any other hands, any other artificial computer hands up. Is there anyone else who wants to share into this space about what these teachings evoked for you, or how you feel like what it means for your place in Judaism, or what it means for how you think about Judaism in general? Going once, going twice. Renee, thank you. Go.
So I just, this is not really how I think about Judaism comment, but again, parent of a non-binary person, people sometimes want to argue about this as if there's something to discuss about the non-binary thing. And I just had this image of saying, Zachar v'nekeva bara otam. Like, what do we even, why is this a conversation?
So yes, exactly. Why is this a conversation? Dan, are you waving your hand or just like slapping your cat's butt?
It's the cat.
Okay. So I'm going to give you some Torah, some non-binary Torah that I've never heard anyone else speak or write about. You heard it here first. Only teach it to adults. So those over 18. So the Yud Hey Vav Hey. Let's break it down. Yud, apostrophe, or perhaps spermatoza. Hey, a canal, a tunnel that goes up into the side, but the hay has an inner leg and an outer leg. There's an entry, right? First hay. It's like the outer, let's say, the outer sex of cis woman, right? The canal, the opening to the birth canal. The vav, Ooh, what goes in that if you're going to make a baby? Penis. The vav is a penis. The second hay, the inner tunnel through the cervix into the uterus. So the yud hey vav hey itself has not only gendered mixity, but also sexual mixity in it. So if you ever thought sex didn't have a place in Judaism or in godness, put those thoughts aside. So Yud Hey Vav Hey's name, very name, is non-binary, transcends gender, or includes all gender. With that, I'll just say next week we're going to go into some learning lessons about gender from stories in Torah and Nevi'im, and also from practices. You know, we have different kind of baby naming practices for those who are seen as boys and those who are seen as girls, and some ideas about weddings that are gendered, right? And then third class is going to be just queerness. So it's going to be applying the gender lens to queer identity, which will include all the Talmudic work on different gender identities, so transness, but it'll also include the basic kind of 1822, Leviticus 1822, about a man lying with a man as he would with a woman. I'm going to break that down in at least 2 or 3 different ways. And also, Lo gever, don't wear the clothing of a man. That's how it's translated. A woman will not wear the clothing of a man, but that's not really what I think it says. And then the fourth class, we're going to get into making our own midrash. We're going to pull a lot of things together. We're going to ground what we do, what we create in the Daughters of Zelophehad story. So these courageous, outrageous, amazing women who changed God's mind, right? And we'll use that as inspiration, and we'll break up into little crews, probably 4 crews, and we'll create a midrash and then share it with each other. So it'll be very, very participatory.